On the slopes of the Ararat Mountains, Ron found some big stone objects with holes through them. These were similar to ancient sea anchors found on the seabed near shipwrecks around the world. These, by the way, were essential equipment for ancient shipping. They were called more appropriately drogue stones. With their flat surface, they created a drag in turbulent water to prevent a ship from slipping sideways against the wave and being capsized. Of course, in calmer waters, they'd just hang right down in the deep, sounding for the bottom. And they could have been manipulated. Now, these drogue stones in the Turkish mountains were much bigger, also to direct a vessel around an obstruction. They were of the size that you would expect to belong to a boat as large as the Ark. There was a hole through each one of them, and you'll notice that the holes have an inner diameter which is larger than the outer. The knot in the centre would swell and hold tight, thus preventing the rope from moving and chafing. Of course, the skeptics tried to explain these as Armenian tombstones. Friends, here we have a shipwreck with more of these stones. We have a Turkish diver here on the bed of the Mediterranean Sea. You try telling this Turkish diver that what he's found are just Armenian tombstones and that those holes there in the stones were simply for candles. Well, my objections kept flowing through to Ron, and I said, but this boat shape in the mountains, it's not a boat. Ron, the streamlined shape is caused by lava flowing around an obstruction. Well, there's the shape. You notice that this is pointing uphill. The answer came, what you need, Jonathan, is an understanding of fluid dynamics. Now, here are two pictures. One of the boat shape up in the Turkish mountains, and one of a totally different shape. If this shape on the left was formed naturally, the mud flow would hit the obstruction and pile up behind it, like a light bulb shape, and then it would move outward and possibly meet lower down, and the lower down portion would be where the sharp end was, something like this. So it would come out here, would flow down and form its point downwards. But you notice the point is upwards here. This is not the way it happens in nature. This is the way nature does it. This is man-made, this is nature-made. So Jonathan, learn about fluid dynamics, Ron said, and you'll realise that this could only be a man-made object. Well, my objection was shot down. The scientists continued to come, and they brought 3 different types of metal detector over several years. They found a pattern of iron at regular intervals each time. The pattern found by the metal detectors was recorded by laying yellow and pink tape along the lines of pattern. You'll notice that the object is impaled here on a big rock. You'll notice that the straight lines are bent, much the same as a car accident wrapped around a lamp pole. These 2 objects, the boat shape and this rock, do not belong together. These collided at some time and hence the damage on the side. This is a foreign body. This must have come from somewhere else. We'll show you what we believe happened a little later in the program. Now, since the boat shape came up from the mud, the weather has been eroding the mud, and vertical uprights resembling a ship's ribs have been appearing more prominently along the sides. And after a section of the mud was shaved off, vertical petrified ribs began to show as a different colour. And deeper still, horizontal lines showed up. And these indicate a lattice pattern. Subsequent radar scans of the full length of the structure were made, lengthwise, crosswise, and laterally along the sides. The ground-penetrating radar picked up a definite pattern, and as we looked, the radar showed with refined detail the same pattern picked up by the metal detectors. And what the radar showed was stunning. It revealed walls, cavities, a door near the front in the south end, ramps, and near the door 2 large round tank structures, 14 feet high and 24 feet across with metal bands around them. Friends, we now have 1,000 feet, that's 300 metres of paper printout from the radar scans. When the information was fed into a computer, it gave this shape under the ground. The vessel is in a state of petrification and collapse. I say that with regret. It appears that what we have here is the remains of the hull and the bottom deck. The 2 top decks have collapsed, and what we appear to have is their rubble of the bottom deck. There seems to be a pattern to this rubble. As you walk along the structure between the 2 walls, you'll notice it rises in a step here and along here, comes down in a step here and another step here and goes straight again. The computer visualises from this the original shape of the structure. Quite modern looking, is it not? Bob Morrell, a member of our team, has constructed a model based upon the radar scans. There are 72 ribs along one side and 72 ribs along the other side, facing each other exactly, based upon the radar scans. 72 and 72, 144, a good biblical number. And there is the doorway, which is about 8 feet across. The door has gone, but the cavity is there, about 2.5 metres wide. Friends, also we have a few more pictures here of Bob Morrell's model drawn up from the radar scans. There are 4 protrusions which appear to be at the back here. People have suggested to us they might be stabilisers. The boat did not have to travel anywhere. All it had to do was ride out a number of months of the most turbulent storms this world has ever seen, when seas and continents were churned up together. Now you'll notice here in the model that the doorway is in the front here. This is where the radar shows it to be. That's the doorway. So it's a ship. Well, you might ask, could it be a Roman galleon, perhaps a Viking ship? It's a question that I'm asked from time to time. Well, let's see. You'll notice that our boat is in a continental heartland location, several hundred kilometres from the nearest Mediterranean Sea. For it to get there, this land would all have to be underwater. Now, in historical times, this has always been land. It has not been underwater. So I suggest to you, friends, that instead of somebody inventing a boat that we're never told about in history, let's admit that the ancient world did record a ship in this area. And that ship is the legendary Noah's Ark, at a time when the waters did cover the land. Now compare the size. Here is the size of Noah's Ark as given in the Bible. 300 cubits, we're told. Now, if Moses, the compiler of this account, was raised and educated in Egypt, he would undoubtedly be using the Egyptian cubit to describe it. The Royal Egyptian cubit was 20.6 inches, just over half a metre. Now, we know that later cubits were used, and sometimes people say, well, is the cubit the distance from the elbow to the hand? Or is it perhaps the 18-inch Hebrew cubit? Well, we know, friends, that the Royal Egyptian cubit was the one used by the Hebrews at least until the time of King Solomon. Our team was in Jerusalem recently, and we measured some tombs from the time of Solomon. They were cut according to the 20.6-inch cubit. The 18-inch cubit did not come into use until much later. Well, while we're here in Jerusalem, let's just have a look at some of the scenery here. Here's a dear little Arab boy that was selling bagels on his lovely sweaty arm one afternoon, selling them off one by one to people who wanted to take them home to eat. Dear little fellow. So 300 cubits equals 515 feet. or 158.46 metres. The critics have said that boat shape in Turkey is roughly the size of Noah's Ark. This is actually a sketch based upon radar scanning. You'll notice there's the rock intrusion here. You'll notice the passageway. There's 9 divisions, plus the pattern of metal as well. Now, they say it's roughly the length of Noah's Ark. Roughly? That won't fly, friends. It's exactly 300 cubits in length. Careful measurements were made by 2 different groups to show its inside length to be. One group went 1 year and they measured it at 515.7 feet. Another team went the next year and measured it at exactly 515 feet to the last inch, 6,180 inches. I tell you, friends, that's not rough, that's very precise. The length of Noah's Ark and the length of that structure are identical. And the average beam width is right too. And I'd say, friends, if I was still a skeptic, for one to quibble away such a coincidence as a boat shape upon the mountains of Ararat, 300 cubits in width, and with an average 50 cubit width, and ascribe it to a chance, would be to drive scepticism beyond the limits. Now, another test is the place names in the area. Now, this is an interesting one. Archaeologists know that ancient place names are among the most imperishable of human things. Lost cities have been located by heeding ancient place names when they're unchanged for thousands of years. Place names often record events that happened in the locality. This is a very scientific approach. Let's use it here. We're told that toward the end of the flood in the scriptures, Noah sent out a dove and a raven or a crow to test for the re-emergence of land. At first, with nowhere to stand, the crow kept returning. Finally, it did not return. Here is an aerial photograph of the area. Here's our boat. Each of these dots represents a place name connected with Noah's Ark and the people who came out of it. 2 kilometres away from the boat shape, eastward, there is a village. This village has a name, Karg Akenwas, which means the crow will not stand or return. Now notice this map. Here's Big Mount Ararat. Here is our boat. Here we have the mountains of Ararat. We are here about 19 kilometres south of the big mountain. Notice the place names. Here is a place called the Valley of Eight. Here is a village called the Place of Eight. And the village people say they don't know where the name came from. It's been there for thousands of years. Now, how many people, according to the scripture, were on Noah's Ark? There were 8 people. Now notice this one, Deronink. And the name translated into English means where the oars were reversed. That something happened here where a boat slowed down. Now, friends, I don't believe that Noah's Ark had oars, but this is a simplistic way of saying where the boat slowed down. You actually have a boat that uses oars, and you reverse the oars, you're slowing down the boat. So what we're having here is a story told us by the place name. Now here is the spot. It's 6,000 feet above sea level. And here the name says this is where the boat slowed down. Are we talking about a boat going over the mountains here when water covered these mountains and the boat slowed down? Did you know that the ancient civilizations tell us where to find Noah's Ark? Here are the clues. Notice.